Day 5 of the 2024 US Chess Championships saw the 5th round of classical action following yesterday's rest day. Starting with the results in the open section, top seed and leader Fabiano Caruana managed to defeat Christopher Yu in their individual game. However, there was a rather unfortunate incident which happened after the game, which resulted in Chief Arbiter Chris Bird expelling Christopher Yu from the tournament after a gross violation of both the St. Louis Chess Club's Code of Conduct and the US Chess Safe Play policy. What that means for the tournament is that because we're before the halfway mark, Yu's results will be annulled, and instead every player will receive a bye round. So that changes the standings, as Caruana is now going to be tied for first with 3 out of 5. Though having already played his bye round, he is still ahead of the other players on 3 who still need to have their bye round take place. Other results saw Awonder Liang defeating Abhimanyu Mishra, Levon Aronian defeating Sam Shankland, and Robson winning against Leinier Dominguez. In the US Women's Championship, Carissa won again, increasing her perfect score to 5 out of 5 after having defeated Begim Tokhirjonova today. Meanwhile, Tatev Abrahamyan won against Anna Zatonskih to get back to second place in the standings with 3.5 out of 5. Going into the games, we'll start with the game between Mishra and Awonder Liang, which started off with the Queen's Gambit. Liang goes e6, knight c3, and now takes on c4, so kind of a delayed Queen's Gambit accepted. And here the opening actually went rather fine for black. Knight f3, knight c6, castles, bishop e7, and now d5. And somewhere things actually went wrong, likely for Mishra in the opening, as he already was spending a bit of time here, and d5 doesn't seem to be very much liked by the engine. So it seems like he might have confused some prep, as after takes, castles, black gets a very reasonable position. White grabbed the bishop pair on e7 and plays b3, but black gets a very active game here. Bishop e6, knight to b4, white played queen e2, and now knight e4. And already black here is playing for more than just equality. Bishop to g4, rook d1, queen f6, all of black's pieces here very, very active. And white is slightly worse here, but yeah, there's no real clear way to equalize. Here, g4 was played by Mishra. The engine was suggesting queen f1, just sacrificing a pawn on f3. Very, very difficult to find this. But after g4, bishop g6, of course, white's king side is now weak. Bishop to e1, and yeah, I really like how Awonder played this. He just keeps all of his pieces very, very active, calmly improves his position. Eventually, Mishra goes bishop c3. Black takes off white's bishop pair, now goes bishop to e4, and just a clear positional advantage for black. The pieces stand better, white's king is now weak as well, and yeah, now Liang switches over to the d file, rook d8, rook to d4, brings the other rook to d8, knight to c4. I think this might be the moment where things get decisively bad for white. Apparently, the e-pawn is likely to fall. The engine wants knight f3, giving up the e-pawn right away, and something like rook takes e4, knight to e5, and possibly white can still have some holding chances here. Instead, we saw knight c4 in the game, now g6, knight e3, queen takes e4. And it wasn't totally necessary for white to give up the pawn like this, but he is kind of losing the pawn eventually, and also has to deal with ideas of like queen h4 and h5, and so overall very difficult position for white. Also at this point Mishra is down to 8 minutes, so really heavy time trouble, as he still has about 13 moves to make before the time control. So knight e3, queen takes, bishop g2, queen f4, white trades on c6, but now a very nice move, rook to d2, in between move, threatening queen takes f2, followed by queen h2 mate. If black were to take on c6, he would still have a nice advantage, but rook d2 is definitely a nice touch. So rook f1, knight takes c6, knight g2, queen d6 back. Here black is a pawn up and just has a big strategic advantage. Queen g3, and black decides to go for the endgame. Second rook comes in with rook to d3, and now black is likely winning the second pawn and, yeah, winning the game. So knight d4 here, takes, and Awonder's technique was absolutely fine. Takes on b3, king f8, and white is just down 2 clear pawns. And the game concluded after knight e2 check, takes on g3, rook takes d5, 3 pawns up for black, and that was it. So very nice win by Awonder, as he now has 3 out of 5 points and is on to a plus score in the event. Moving on to the US Women's Championship, I'll show you guys the critical game between Carissa and Begim Tokhirjonova. This one started off as a King's Indian attack and was pretty balanced. Maybe white had a bit of an edge, but for the most part, black was doing quite all right in this position. I'll take you folks through the critical moment here after white. Carissa just played h4. She's kind of squeezing on both sides of the board. She's advanced a5, now advancing on the king side. Here, Begim goes king h8, a6, and now g5. And here she tries to lash out a bit on the king side. But this ends up working out for black. As white goes h5, I don't think this was best. The engine liked queen a5 here with a big advantage. Because after h5, now black gets a lot of counterplay with this very strong move, g4. White takes on g4 and knight f6. This is black's idea, trying to win back the pawn. And things were pretty unclear as white's king is a little bit weak. There's weaknesses. But queen a5, offering the queen trade, black allows it. Bishop to e2 is played, knight takes e4. White really couldn't hold on to all the pawns, had to give something back eventually. But here Carissa decides to keep queens on actually. Queen a4, queen back to c2, rook d1, bishop e7. Game continues very logically here. Queen to d3, bishop e7, bishop f3, knight to g5. And at this point, white actually does manage to pick up an extra pawn with knight takes e5 here. But queen e6, black is very active and does have enough compensation for the pawn. However, it still gets difficult. Queen f5, queen a2, knight f3 now. And Begim decides to take on f3. The engine was saying queen a1 here, and black would be having enough counterplay for at least a draw. Instead, she trades and goes king to g7. And now queen b7 in this position still, like, objectively supposed to be holding for black, but it is kind of difficult because white does have the extra pawn, and this a7 pawn is a big target. So if white is able to win this a pawn, then of course her a pawn will be very, very strong. So in the meantime, black needs to create enough counterplay with the queen and bishop, but this is easier said than done. So queen e2, queen c6, and now Begim goes queen d1 check and queen to d3, but probably this was where she ends up going wrong. Instead, had black just put the bishop back on f8, kept the queen on e2 in order to always have access to these checks, then it would be quite difficult for white to really make progress with queen b7, queen takes a7. This would always allow counterplay with queen d1, queen d5. But as it happens in the game, black gets a little bit tripped up. So check, queen to d3, Carissa finds c4, nice move. Black can't really move because the bishop is hanging. Bishop e7, queen to b7, bishop f8, and now white can take on a7, and black really isn't in time to create counterplay here. So queen e4 check, king g1, and Carissa's point is that after queen b1 check, king h2, if black were to play a move like queen f1, now white can actually play queen to b7. Very nice resource. And after queen takes f2, queen g2, it turns out even though black is a piece up, she's not stopping the a-pawn, and white is just winning this one. So at this point, this a-pawn is too strong. Begim tried bishop d6. Now bishop d4 check. Interesting shot from Carissa. Wasn't totally necessary. She could have played queen b7 here. She'd be winning. But she goes for bishop to d4, allowing a queen endgame. After takes, and queen takes d6. This one is winning for white. She's just too many pawns up, and black doesn't have any perpetual check available that white can't deal with. Queen takes c4, key move queen f6 here, covering the f1 square, and now white's queen is extremely active and basically perfectly placed. Black has no good checks, and white is soon going to promote her pawn. So queen a2, stopping a7 for now, but now check, check on e5, check on e4, queen to b7, and of course the pawn is running. Black tried f5 here as kind of a desperate attempt, but yeah, it wasn't enough, and Carissa managed to convert here. Takes, queen e4, and that was resigns, as next white is just promoting, black has no checks, and the game is over. So very, very nice win by Carissa. She manages to grind it out in the technical stage of the game and stay on an incredible perfect 5 out of 5 score as she aims to win her second straight US Women's Championship title. Also having a nice win today was Tatev Abrahamyan, as she won this game as black against the 4-time champion Anna Zatonskih. I'll just show you folks the critical moment here. Tatev played this move h5, looking to open up the king side as she tries to activate her pieces. Probably white should have taken on h5 here, although it does look ugly for the structure. Then black might play something like bishop to e4 and look to sacrifice on f4 and try to open up white's king. Instead, g5 was played, but now this allows black to sacrifice on f4 immediately. Very, very nice exchange sacrifice. After knight takes f4, rook takes f4, it's just basically impossible for white to hold on to everything in her position. h4 pawn, d4 pawn, everything is under pressure. Zatonskih tried queen takes e6. She grabs this pawn, but now king h7. Black's king is super safe. Queen e3, I believe, was the best try according to the chess.com engine. Then rook takes h4, in very, very difficult position for white to hold. Black is definitely better. Instead, we saw queen takes d5, but now rook takes e4. Queen g3 is a huge threat. Bishop e4 is a huge threat as well. And this one is all over. Queen g2 played, but now bishop to e4. And yeah, rook h1 check is coming. Queen g3 is again a problem. Zatonskih tried queen takes e4. Nice little trick at the end. Rook takes e4. Bishop to d3. Looking to win back the rook and then have two rooks against the queen. But Tatev finds nice resource here. Queen g3 check, king f1, queen f3 check, king g1, and now queen takes d3. Nice way to end the game. If rook takes queen, then black has rook takes e1 and ends up with an extra knight in the endgame. And otherwise, black is just up the queen. So that one is all over. And yeah, nice win by Tatev as she gets back into clear second place with 3.5 out of 5. Still a 1.5 behind Carissa. It's not clear who's going to stop her in this tournament. Folks, do you think she is going to win it all? Let us know in the comment section down below. So that takes us into tomorrow's round 6, where we have a number of really, really important pairings. Caruana is going to be white against Grigoriy Oparin. We also have Abrahamyan white against Yip. So absolutely crucial matchup in the US Women's Chess Championship. Should be another very exciting day ahead of us, and hopefully I'll see you back here for the recap. Until then, take care.